You've muted yourself again. 2 episodes in a row.
I have. I have. I don't know what's going on with this technology. Can you hear me yet?
Out of sync.
All I can hear is the intro. Welcome everyone to the To Hell and Back podcast, proudly sponsored by 6 Yards Out and Old Zoological Bar. This is really difficult. All I can hear is that tiger not barking, roaring in the background. So I really don't know what's going on. I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Sorry for that, dear listeners. We're proudly sponsored by 6 Yards Out and Old Zoological Bar, or as I called it just then, Pearson's Bar, but it's changed and that's very exciting. I'm your host, Nathaniel Whitto, being professional as always, and I'm joined by Ant and Tom. So I hope that wasn't too awful an introduction. I'm sure it was though. Ant and Tom, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, we're okay, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
Good. That was very scary. I couldn't hear what you were saying. All I could hear was
when
the
you started,
wonderful intro.
You did seem really laggy, like your connection went a little bit, so maybe you were lagged behind and your video was still playing on your side.
It was waiting to catch up, I think.
Yes, that's happened 2 weeks in a row. I don't know what's going on there. And I don't really know what went on with the 2 Hull City games this week. 1 goal, 3 conceded. We've had a point at Stoke. So generally, how are we feeling about these 2 games? I was saying before the games that I think 2 points would be maybe slightly the bare minimum of what I would be happy with, so long as it wasn't too boring 0-0 draws. But Ant, how have you felt about the 2 games that have just happened?
There were 2 very difficult away games, and I think we went into it obviously with confidence because we were playing well. Even at tough places to go, like Sheffield United, for example, we didn't pick anything up there, but played well. So I think people, on face value, probably would have been happy with 2 really good performances, even if we didn't get the points. Stoke, maybe we didn't attack so well, but we defended really well and held on for a really good draw. Whereas Norwich, I just think we didn't really play well in any aspect of our game. And all the players and Rosini himself have said that we were well below our usual standards. And what I liked to hear is that following the Norwich game, they've all been saying the same thing. Like, it's the first time that they've genuinely been able to come out of a game that they've been in and said that we deserve to lose. Which, considering he's been here for 14 games now, is a very good thing if there's only 1 game where we've actually deserved to lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that certainly is a positive. I don't know whether I'd 100% agree with that, because I think I wasn't at Stoke, I was just listening to it, but hearing how much Stoke had the ball in that game, or were attacking more than us, maybe we perhaps slightly deserved to lose that one, or if we'd lost, that wouldn't have been extremely unfair. So, Tom, what do you think about that?
The Stoke game, we struggled to sort of break them down, and I think Stoke from the off knew that in order to get the better of us, or try to get better of us, they had to press us high, and that's exactly what they did. They sort of stopped us from playing out, and they stopped sort of Seri getting on the ball. And obviously, if you stop Seri, you sort of stop us really, because that's most of what we do well is through Seri. But going on from your point, I think it was probably the accurate result, but we had the best chance of the game through Connolly. That obviously the ball comes across the box, he hits it with his left, and people are saying it should be scoring, but I think it's quite harsh to. I mean, it should be hitting a target at the very least, but when that's showing a clear-cut chance of the game, that's we need to be creating more than that. And against Stoke, we sort of struggled, but it was always going to sort of get these stumbling blocks eventually, and now it's just how we react to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what Rossini has been saying a lot, and Pelkas in the interview before the Preston game. It's just about how we bounce back, because I think, would we all agree the Norwich game was the worst performance of the Rossini era so far?
I would. I think,
yeah.
Even as the game started, you could see the pattern of play and the tactics that Norwich used. And I think because Stoke did it similar, just obviously not as well. Teams are wising up now to set up against us. They know that we're going to try and play out from the back and try and play a possession-based style. So if they press as high as they possibly can up the pitch and limit our passing options, then we struggle to get out of our half. And at Stoke, we kind of, it was fairly even possession-wise, but we just struggled to break them down. Whereas at Norwich, we were just pinned on the edge of our box for the entire 90 minutes. And it was quite a frustrating game to watch, because we couldn't seem to get a foothold in the game. The passes were sloppy. We just didn't seem to have any way to counter what they were doing. And I mean, sometimes, we all know how good Norwich are as a side. They were pre-season promotion favourites. So they've had quite a poor season by their own standards. But if they're going to play to the best of their capabilities like they did against us, and we have a bad day, then there's only going to be one winner. And we needed to try and hold on to that 1-0 lead that we got quite early, which was against the run of play. Probably about our only chance of the game as well. And they just had too much for us, didn't they? Sometimes you just got to hold your hands up and say we deserve to lose that one, and I think we did against Norwich.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the other two games we've lost, Sheffield United, although they had a lot of chances, we were in that game. It was only 1-0. I think we controlled it, parts of that game as well. And then Reading was a draw right up until the last kick of the game. So I think, probably the worst result. But as you said, Norwich are a very good team. The way they were playing, it seemed like Wagner had got the best out of him, out of the team. Of course, he's still a fairly new manager there. Had lost his first home game against Burnley, but I suppose this was the first time he had that home match with his new team against someone that you can beat, because Burnley just seem sort of invincible at the moment. A lot of people have been talking about Matt Ingram, that he deserves to be dropped. I've seen a lot of reaction about that, even after the Stoke game, because of his distribution. You can't drop a goalkeeper after a clean sheet, can you, Tom?
No, you can't. I think, like we said before, it's going to take a while for Darlow to sort of get into the team. I'm not sure if he'll get into the team on the back of this Norwich result. I think it'd be quite harsh. But if we want to play out from the back, Ingram's, let's be honest, Ingram's not that keeper that we need. In terms of, he has improved with the ball at his feet, but if you wanted someone that's comfortable, I think that's the reason why we signed Darlow. So I think perhaps he could be coming into the team sooner rather than later. Just sort of give, it depends on what the upcoming results are, but maybe Ingram's had a long run into the team. Maybe let him have a rest and bring in Darlow perhaps. But yeah, I think it's ludicrous saying after a 0-0 draw, saying drop the keeper. I think that's a bit ridiculous. But yeah.
I was quite surprised to see just how many people were tweeting that after the game, and I think especially after conceding 3 against Norwich, but I think it would definitely be harsh. Of course, we say that Darlow's been brought in to play out from the back, and assumedly Rossini wouldn't have signed him if that's not a skill he's got. But I mean, I've not seen Darlow play for ages, and I suppose it's not just that you bring in a goalkeeper who's better with his feet and that'll work immediately, because Ingram's clearly learnt a lot from these previous games. Darlow will have to go through that same learning process of knowing when to pass to the players and when to go long. So, and do you think it wouldn't just be an easy fix, would it, if Darlow came in?
No, but I think we've mentioned it before. I do think that Darlow's come here to be number one. I do think that Rossini will have been waiting for a game to justify bringing Darlow in. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him start in the next game. Not to say that Ingram deserves to be dropped, because I don't think he could have done much about either of the goals. Any of the goals, he scored 3, obviously. But I just think that Ingram's, the entire team were awful passing-wise. But Ingram, in that game, in moments of the game where we were under pressure, was kicking it off the pitch. His distribution was really poor. And I think Rossini will use that as the excuse to get Darlow in the side. And that's not to say that I think Darlow's any better at distribution, because I haven't seen, like you say, I ain't seen him play since he was in the Championship with Newcastle. And I don't think they played out from the back. He hit it long, so you can't really I can't say that he's better at certain things than Ingram, because realistically, we don't actually know, do we? We're going off, his reputation. We're assuming he's better, but we don't actually know that, do we? We know what Ingram's capable of and how good he can be. I just think the entire team had a bad day at Norwich, so it would be harsh to drop him, but I just do think that Rossini will use that game as the excuse to get Darlow in against Preston. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, the only issue I have with Ingram being dropped is that he's built up a real good understanding with McLaughlin and Jones at the back in his defence. But obviously built up that great partnership, kept all them clean sheets in a row. But like you say, the reason we're bringing in a Premier League goalkeeper on loan, it would be surprised to not see him feature heavily for the rest of the season. And I think Ingram probably knows that himself, that he sees that that's the competition he's up against. But it all depends on what Rossini thinks after that game. If he thinks it warrants him being dropped, then that's fair play. But I don't think it. I think Ingram could still hold his head high. I think he's had a great season so far. I'd say he's been one of our best performers. Especially at the start of the season, kept us in a lot of games with some great saves. So I think he's still a good keeper. But we'll have to see what happens moving forward. But yeah.
Yeah,
it's one of
well,
those. It's certainly not. It's certainly not fair to be criticising him, saying he's single-handedly responsible for us losing 3-1 at Norwich. I think the tweets of the people that say he's absolutely awful. I think that's wrong because he just had 3 clean sheets in a row before that game, and then we came up against a side that just outdid us tactically and quality-wise. So it's nothing that Ingram did wrong per se. But like you say, if Rosini has an ideal way of playing, and Ingram more often than not struggles to especially the longer passes. I think with the shorter passes, he hasn't really got an issue. It's your longer passes when we've been pressed high and we need to then dink the ball over their front line into the wide men, and it tends to always go off the pitch. And it's moments like them where it can be the difference. You're keeping possession or you're losing possession instantly. And I just think that if he's looking at it against the Norwich game, I bet his pass accuracy was about 50-60%, which is probably really poor. He'll probably bring Darlow in, but it would be harsh. But then again, like we say, he's brought Darlow in for a reason. So it's just, he's not going to have a better excuse to bring him in now, is he?
No, quite right. Lee Walker's asking about a few fans saying Slater should be dropped, and Nshep here says that Slater needs to move inside as he's being wasted on the wing. So what do we think about Regan Slater? Because I don't think, again, another player I don't really think should be dropped, but I think we're probably not seeing the best of him as a wide player.
Yeah, with the system we played against Norwich, I felt that it sort of made him stand out as a player that wasn't played too. I think it's not his position first and foremost, but I think with the system was playing 4-4-2 with Seri and Woods in midfield, they had a midfield free, especially like Kenny McLean winning the ball back. I think they're just sort of outpowered us in there. I think you can't really play, especially against a side like Norwich, you can't play Seri and Woods together. They're probably better against a side that are going to sort of sit back a bit more, sort of lower down the table. But in terms of Slater, I think he's much better as sort of the deep line player. I think we've seen him across the season play him in behind the striker, and especially against Cardiff where he got them 2 goals, sort of running late into the box. But I think his natural position is that sort of holding midfielder, sort of probably next to Seri. But we've got a lot of competition in there, and we've also now got a lot of competition in behind the striker. So I think it's hard to see where he's going to slot in, but I think there's no question Regan Slater's hard work, and in the Norwich game itself, he was making quite a lot of runs in behind and sort of trying to sort of make things happen. But on a whole, I don't think his position's winger. He played there obviously against Blackpool, did well, but now we've brought in the likes of Abir, where Aliar's coming back. We've got Teti as well. I think he needs to move more centrally now, and that's where he sort of operates. That's his best position. So yeah.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Of course, he's not scored since the 2 at Cardiff, and that was quite a long time ago, just before the World Cup, of course. And I'd say he probably came in as a midfielder that was probably going to play in the middle, but then Smallwood got injured in the League One season, and then he played there. Perhaps he's a player that has sort of suffered in a way, finding his best form because of that adaptability. He can play anywhere, so he's not really learnt. Still a young player, he's not really had a chance to really learn one set position in the midfield. Would you agree with that, Ant?
Well, it's hard to find consistency when you're not playing in the same place all the time. He's wasted out wide. The one thing you're going to get when you put him on the pitch, like Tom said, you're going to get hard work from him, and he's going to run his socks off for the entire game. And it's we all know how good he is, how good he can be, how much of a goal threat he can be, how comfortable in possession he can be. But we miss the natural width at the minute. I think that's the biggest thing that this side misses, is we don't tend to have much about us in the wide areas. And what we've done well in the past few games under Rossi has usually come from out wide. Your fullbacks, think of Christie, think of Greaves getting in, getting assists, getting goals. And then you need them wingers in front of them to give that support. And as good as Slater is and as dependable, he's not a winger, and we're playing him, he's a square peg in a round hole situation. He's the kind of thing that Steve Bruce used to do when he used to play Myler in wing and things like that. These players are far more
Sam Clucas.
Positions. Yeah,
Sam Clucas is a left winger.
And it's just, you've got to play him in the middle. And like Tom says, the problem is we've got so much competition in the middle, and it's then, where does he play in the middle? What's his role going to be? To me, he would be alongside Seri doing the dog work. You've got Doherty doing that. So you've got Slater and Doherty vying for the same position for me. You've got Seri and Woods vying for the same position. You've got Tufan and possibly Slater for the number 10. You've got Pelkas for the number 10. Pelkas can play out wide. The problem is there's a lot of versatility in the team. I think for me, it's would you rather have Slater in the team or Doherty? I think that'll be the position that he'll be intended to be brought in, and where he's best is obviously doing that box to box role alongside Seri. But Doc's been playing well there, so we say, where does he get in?
That's one thing as well. Like the way we set up against Norwich, I knew why Rossini did it is because we've had success recently with a 4-4-2, sort of having two forwards, one dropping off, one in behind. And I think with a 4-4-2, we know that like it's one of the best formations to defend in as a compact sort of the two banks of four with the two strikers. But it didn't work out like that because they were just able to sort of penetrate through our midfield so easy and then get out wide. And their wingers had the pace to sort of beat our fullbacks. Like Christie struggled. And we just sort of struggled to get a foothold in the game. But I think that's the reason why we play 4-4-2. But ideally, I think if we sort of replay that game again, would sort of play with an extra midfielder like a Doherty that sort of can pick the ball up and carry it long. That's where we sort of struggled as well. Like when we did get the ball, we didn't have the pace to sort of break forward. Like Ebiowei can sort of bring to the team, and Ali Arkan as well when he's fit. But that's where we're sort of, if you play that sort of formation, you do need that pace up front. And, when you've got Oscar up front, it's not really, someone that you can rely on for pace. That's why we struggled a lot, I think, to get him behind.
Yeah. Well, I think, of course, Rossini has mentioned a lot that he really wants those pacey wingers. Now, I always get this pronunciation wrong, but I think the pronunciation is Ebiowei rather than Ebiowei or anything like that. Ebiowei. He made his debut against Stoke and then came on again against Norwich City, with the fact that we didn't play very well against Norwich and didn't even score at Stoke. I imagine that he could be in line for a start. As Rossini, he was saying he was his number one attacking target. So, I mean, Connolly is injured. He got injured against Stoke. Will is shouting in capital letters in the comments, just call him Malcolm. So, I mean, do we think that Malcolm could come in, and how big a loss is Connolly? I don't think he'll be out for very long, perhaps just a Preston game, but I suppose bringing in a new player, maybe Darla or Ebiowei, for Preston could give the team that boost to get back to winning ways, as they've said. I'll go to you first, Tom.
I think with Malcolm, I do think that we've not obviously seen enough of him yet to sort of make that sort of judgment on him. He's come into a team, 2 hard games, Stoke, where we didn't sort of particularly play that well. We didn't get the ball to him enough. Like he came on too late, didn't have enough time, and then obviously against Norwich he came on quite late as well. And when you sort of chucks into that game like that, we don't have much of the ball. That's it. But I think he's going to thrive off sort of receiving the ball, taking on his man, and I would like to see him start. I think that we've been crying out for an out and out winger for a while, and I think if we start him on the right, it would benefit Christie as well, because we see Christie sort of taking up him spaces high up the field. And the safe Malcolm's cutting inside, and then Christie's moving on the outside. I think it'll give us a lot more options. I think that's Christie's been in past few games in terms of attacking wise. Christie's probably been our most dangerous player, and he's our fullback. But if we get Malcolm in there as well, who sort of create that space out wide for Christie, then I think it's quite exciting. But it depends what sort of formation we play as well, because like I said, recently we've been playing sort of a 4-4-2 really, with the 2 forwards, one dropping deeper. So if we sort of still played out with it, Malcolm, I'll be interested to see how we sort of work it with him in there. But yeah.
Would it be you, Ant?
Yeah, I think he's come into a bit of unfair criticism, Ebiowei, because it's like Tom said, it was 2 games where we're on the back foot, and he's come on as a late sub where we're defending. So he's not going to make much difference in the game because we didn't have the ball, and he's obviously not a defender. He's a young attacker, exciting, wants to run the defender kind of player, and he's coming back from an injury into a new side, so he's got to settle, he's got to get his match sharpness back, and it was 2 tough games. So we've been a bit harsh on him, I think, some of us online. I would like to see him start. I think Preston will be a game where we'll be on the front foot. It'd be good to see if he can, obviously in it where we've got more of the ball and we're looking to attack more, see if he can obviously change the game in a positive manner for us. I think the thing is with what this insistence on inverted wingers, I'm crying out for us to play natural footed wingers on each side, because I think we're missing. We've got Oscar and Tete, but Tete is huge and Oscar's good in the air. Why are we putting the ball in the box? We struggled to do it against Norwich because Christie and Greaves, we didn't get much natural width with Greaves. I think we missed Elder to a bit. Greaves struggled to get up and down the line, obviously pace-wise. Didn't get much protection from Slater, and then we struggled to get anything from the left. And then on the right-hand side, Christie was nullified all game and had a really poor game. So we didn't get any of that natural width. And then we insist on playing inverted wingers, and then we get the ball up to a dangerous position, and we cut inside and lose it. Whereas, if you have Longman on the right, for example, and Ebby away on the left, you've got your natural wingers that want to run at a defender, get to the byline and stick the ball in. We've got two aerial threats in the middle that, we're not utilising properly. I kind of get why he's using the inverted wingers, because he likes his fullbacks to bomb on, doesn't he? So if we've got a winger that comes inside a bit, it allows the space for the overlap. But I just think sometimes in a game, especially towards the end of the Norwich game, where, the changes that he made, he should have seen that we needed to get the ball in the box to try and salvage the game before obviously Sargent scored in the last minute. But no, I'm excited to see what Ebby can do. He's come here with a big reputation. A lot of championship clubs were after him. So he can't be a bad player, can he? So let's see if obviously we see what he's capable of against Preston.
I do think with the system, when at the start of the season we saw Benjamin Tetty sort of play really well from the left wing. I think he was our highest. I think he got our most assists. I'm not sure now, but he had like 3 or 4 assists at the start of the season. And I think if you have Tetty out wide, he gets more space to sort of receive the ball, and he's able to sort of win them knockdowns. I think out wide we sort of struggle with that height. If we want to kick the ball long, and we've got sort of a keeper that can do that, we sort of find Tetty, we can win the knockdowns onto Oscar. I think it allows you to play a bit more direct sometimes. But I know we've seen he's coming sort of play out from the back, but I would like to see Tetty out wide on the left, like he did early on the season. I think he sort of bullies the fullback, and it, like I say, it gives him more space to sort of cut inside. And I think I do like the inverted wingers. Like Anne said, they gives you more space for the fullback. But again, like if I wouldn't be obliged to seeing sort of 2 wingers with the same, like on the left, Ebby away, then on the right, Longman. I think that'd be quite good. But yeah, we'll have to see what we're seeing he goes with.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably would be a good opportunity for him to make his full debut, especially with Connolly out, and I think we probably missed him a little bit. Tete still, he's coming back from injury or suspension. We've still not really seen the best of him, but perhaps get the, actual winger out on the wing, cross some balls to Tete and Oscar, and score some goals that way, because it seems so obvious when you think about it. They're 2 great aerial strikers, but we never really seem to get the best out of them. So want to talk a little bit about the next game, but before that, what these 2 games just gone have meant for the season, because we just beaten QPR in Cardiff, and some people were saying that, and including myself, that a possibility was on to have a promotion push. I think a 0-0 away at Stoke, maybe a little lucky to get away with the point, but an away point's always good. And then, I think we played a team that is definitely going to have a playoff push, and we were quite poor. So does that change the expectations? We're down to 13th now. It was always going to be very difficult. I know Will was saying, playoffs is just a bit too far, but it's a bit of a reality check, isn't it? And
I do think we'll struggle to get the top 6, but I don't think we're out of it just because of 1 point from the last 2. Mm-hmm. The problem is that from like 15th onwards, they're all technically in the playoff chase. Just because
even 18th,
I'd say 18th.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is we win a game and everyone's like, "Oh my god, we're going to finish in the playoffs," and we lose a game. It's like, right, that's it, season over.
Well, that's just how it is.
Norwich are a side that only just went above us on points with that win, so they're still in our reachable aims to try and overtake. And we play a lot of the sides around us in the next 5 or 6 games. We win against Preston, outlook changes entirely again. We're again within a few points of the top 6, and all it is about picking up. It's okay to lose a game every now and again. Just make sure that you bounce back with a win. Like Blackburn, beginning of the season, before they've just drawn 4 on the bounce, we'll just win-loss all the time. They were in the top 6. So, it's okay losing games. You've just got to back it up with a win, and it's to see how you bounce back. And under Rosenior so far, we have been bouncing back. So I'm confident now in the Preston game. Like, this hasn't changed my optimism for getting something from Preston. I'm not sat here going, we played dreadful against Norwich. I think it's going to continue. I think Rosenior will have been very, very mad with the performance. The players will be mad with themselves because they've set their own high standards. You can hear it when in their interviews. And I think they'll want to make things right back and try and make it 3 wins in the bounce at home as well. So, like I say, win again and we're right in the top 10 mix again, aren't we? So it's just getting those consistent runs together to try and get into the top 6.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that game sort of affected my judgment of Norwich, the way they played, but I do see that as Norwich a team that will be in the playoffs at the end of the season if they carry on playing like they did. They sort of set the standard there like really high. The way they played, that Adam Eder, he's a great player. They've got sort of players in there that are really experienced at this level. They've been in the Premier League. So I think
they could afford to bench Teemu Pukki.
Yeah,
that's how good
still won.
So obviously, when it comes to business end of the season, they've had the experience before of sort of getting to sort of automatic promotion, getting in the playoffs. So I think that's where they'll have the sort of advantage over other teams. Whereas a team like us, we don't really, apart barring like Severi, Christie,
Figueiredo.
I can't think. Yeah, Figueiredo. We don't really have the
Darlow.
sort of. We've got quite a lot of players that have been there. To be fair, promotion wise,
I mean, a lot have been promoted
been
with
there.
us.
So we have got that as well. To be fair. But it's just all about putting that consistent run together. And the Preston on Saturday, like Alan said, they're a great opportunity there to bounce back. And this is what we said even before these 2 games. If we do lose one of them, like we thought we'd lose Norwich, that how are we going to bounce back? And that's the sort of important thing against Preston. I think if we do bounce back and sort of get the 3 points, I think you got to say that we are in the playoff hunt, and we are now. Even so, like even if we drew on Saturday, we still are. But personally, I think that perhaps this season playoffs could be a step too far, but I think while we're still in it, then why shouldn't we sort of set our aims to get in there? So
yeah, I don't think it's really if it was still on, before Norwich, if it was on then, I think it still is, and if it wasn't, it still isn't. I don't really think it's changed a whole lot. I wasn't 100% expectant that we would get anything out of that game because Norwich are a good team with a fresh new manager that's improving what is a very good squad. And rightly you said that at the start of the season a lot of people thought they were going to be promotion candidates. Some positive news though is that Adama Traore not only is back from injury on the grass, but has actually played 2 games. And in his second game against Barnsley's, I think is it under 18s or under 21s, even scored a goal. So that's nice, isn't it? And got an assist in a lovely 3-0 win against Yorkshire rivals. I don't really know whether rivalry is a thing in under 21s football.
I think it is.
Because they're all changing teams. Yeah, but that's nice, isn't it? And hopefully we can probably see him playing for the first team. I imagine that maybe even by April, maybe not a bit earlier. Maybe, possibly. I think on 21's football is very different.
Good few games to get.
They're increasing the amount of minutes he's playing, aren't they? So he played 45 minutes in his first game, then he played 60 in against Barnsley. So they'll increase it to probably 75 and then 90, and then once he's played a couple of 90 minutes for the youth, then he's probably ready to be put back into the first team. I mean, seen put back, he hasn't played yet, has he? But I'm excited to see what he can do because he's got Champions League experience. He once cost Monaco 15 million quid, so he's obviously got something about him. And it could be that little bit of unexpected difference that when sides are doing the research on us in the run to the end of the season, he could be our wild card because even we don't know what he can do. So how can they try and match up against him because they don't have a clue either.
I do think with sort of some of our players that we've got quite a few of our midfielders quite similar attributes wise, whereas Traore could be someone that could maybe unlock a defence. Like I've not seen a lot of him, but maybe he could be sort of someone that can sort of grab the game by the scruff of the neck in there, sort of produce that moment of brilliance to win a match.
He's apparently number 10, isn't he? He's meant to be an unlock the defence, got an eye for a range goal kind of player. So.
Maybe.
We've seen obviously Dimitri Pelkas, he was meant to come in as that sort of player, but he's not really reached them heights yet. And he's still got time to do that, but with Traore as well, perhaps coming in. But one player I want to sort of pick out of someone that played very, very poor against Norwich was Ryan Woods. I think he was at fault for 2 of the goals.
I heard you say Ryan, and I got very nervous.
Right, so Ryan Woods, I think, with one of the goals, he was at massive fault for. There was a player on the edge of the box, and he just sort of stood there, sort of in no man's land, not attempting to block across, not attempting to chase down the man, sort of stood there in the box, and he sort of cost us 2 goals. But the full team played poor. But I think when you set up with Woods and Seri midfield, you're going to struggle to sort of it was a bit of a struggle, to be fair. But
the problem is with Woodsy is that he's not that kind of player, is he? So like you say, you put him alongside Siri, and they're both very similar. They want to be ball playing midfield.
Both technical, aren't they? Really?
Yeah. So Woods wasn't signed to be the kind of player like the Richie Smallwood kind of player. I think he got his team selection wrong, Rosie, and I think that's the first time I can say that with confidence. I think he did say he wanted to put some fresh legs in the side, but I think he just allowed us to get overrun in the middle. I mean, at times when I think I pointed out on the iFollow, there was times when Norwich's defence had the ball, and they had 5 attackers literally lined up against our back 4, and it's just like we can't live with them. Like, they'd play one long ball up top, and they had ample options to try and win the ball back, and then it led to them winning every second ball because our midfield wasn't,
Yeah, I think in that game, we neither sat back and sort of started to pressure counter-attacked or pressed them. I think it was in between, and that's what cost us, because you usually see Oscar pressing from the front and sort of putting the opposition under pressure. You see Tetty doing it as well. You see Longman doing it. But in that game, I think with the way we set up with the 4-4-2, it sort of stops us from pressing. And I think in order to do that, you sort of do need to play like an extra man in midfield that's sort of help with the pressing, and sort of if you play 3 across the front, they can press as well. But I think that's a learning curve. And I put a tweet out after the game saying that. Obviously, we're seeing he's coming under scrutiny for the team selection, but he's also sort of won his games with his team selection and the substitutions he's made. So I think, as a young manager, he's going to make mistakes, and I think on Saturday he'll get it right.
I mean, it's easy to sit here and say, obviously, he got his team selection wrong, like I just did. But when you look at it in hindsight, like if you're planning as a gaffer, you got Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Would you rather have played maybe a weakened side against Norwich where you didn't really expect to get anything anyway, and then play a stronger side against Preston? Where you could get 3 points? Realistically,
I think that's why he's rested a few of our players. I think that he did that on purpose. I think you could see like Tufan coming back into the team.
4 changes.
We played for a point, didn't we? But they just overwhelmed us. That was it. I think the one of the biggest problems we had in that game was Oscar and Tete just could not hold the ball up. In those kind of games where you've got to have an outlet to get out of your half, where they were pressed us so high that our short passing game was nullified, you've got to go long. And when you go long, you've got to make sure you retain the ball, or else it's just going to keep coming straight back at you. And I think both Oscar and Tete had really poor games in terms of holding the ball up and bringing other players into the game. I think even Rossi said it himself in the interview after the game. He said that we didn't have enough from the front men to give us that outlet to get out.
That was our game. That's always meant to counter-attack, was meant to receive the ball, and you'd have the runners like Longman and Slater out wide. And unfortunately, because we didn't get the ball enough to the front men, we didn't see enough from our wingers to create them chances. But that's it's a learning curve, and I think from what we're seeing from Oscar this season, that's one of his strong parts of his game. He just had a poor game. Holding up the ball is usually good at, but
Yeah. Well, just a few more things to point out. Enship there says Ryan Woods has the weirdest running style I've ever seen. But now that I think about it,
looks like Velma from Scooby-Doo.
I don't even think I've ever seen Ryan Woods run. So I don't know whether that is a weird running style.
I was weirded out by. I don't think Ryan Woods likes Norwich very much. Did you see his reaction after the first goal?
Yes. Well, he used to play for Ipswich.
Did it?
So that'd be why.
That might be why. Yeah, he ran shushing all the fans behind their goal, didn't he?
I thought if he didn't like a team, surely he'd put a lot of effort in, and just didn't see enough from him. Like tracking back at you, if you played Dockett instead, he's going to get 110%. Ryan was there. He didn't have enough tenacity about him to win the ball. Didn't press enough. That was one part of the field where we it cost us really, but we rotated the team and sort of paid the price.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not too, fond of making a scapegoat of a certain player, but rather that Ryan than the other Ryan to make a scapegoat for that performance. And another thing, which was a positive, which I pointed out before we conceded 3 at Norwich, was that since the World Cup, we had the joint second best defence, with only Burnley having conceded fewer. And I think even though we've conceded 3, especially with lots of other teams playing on Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm still sure we're probably third or fourth.
We've only conceded 8.
That's a great turnaround though. That's
8 in
14.
Yeah,
but 8 in 11 games since the World Cup, though, I think. So that's still an incredible record. And, of course, 3 clean sheets before a very good Norwich team. So one big story that has broken just yesterday, I think it was, or was it even earlier today, this plan to potentially move Hull Fair because there's going to be a 25 million redevelopment of Walton Street and the car park to create a sort of new training ground or football village, do they call it? I haven't actually looked at the interview. Here is the absolutely massive stonking comment from Will about it. I'm not going to read it all out, but as it doesn't even, we can't even fit it on the screen. It's so big. He thinks Will says it's stupid of the council to not want to develop an area of the city, blah, 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 lots more. So, Ant and Tom, having not read it myself, what's all this?
It's been something that the Alams mentioned, wasn't it? And it kind of it was something that the Alams spoke about when they were in charge, but it not really came out. I think the council told them no, didn't they? I think they wanted the council to pay for everything.
That's the reason why the Alams had plans to sort of renovate the outside of the ground, like Ajahn has talked about now, sort of build hotels and stuff like that. And that was one of the reasons why the Alams got the umph and started sort of taking out on the fans, really, with his decisions with the club, really, the membership scheme and stuff like that. But I'll log in and end the stream, read it all.
No, it's. I think what the basic gist, without having to read Will's comment, I imagine will be similar to the vast majority of City fans' reactions to it is. Hull Fair is a week every year, and yes, it is a long-standing tradition of the city since like the 1200s or something like that. But the main point is it's a travelling fair; it's not a fixed fair. Now there is ample space. City, it would be more suited to being on the outskirts of the city. Let's be honest, for traffic flow, parking, and accessibility. I think St Andrew's Quay would be a good place to put the fair. It's not going to end Hull Fair by moving it. That's the point. People seem to think that if we do this development, that we lose the fair entirely, and that's not a thing. The council just can't be bothered to relocate it, which makes no sense considering that if this happens, it benefits the football club and the city as a whole throughout the year. Instead of sacrificing it for something that the vast majority of the money from Hull Fair, in all honesty, goes to the people who run Hull Fair.
I'll do it.
The city. Go on, Will.
Will, do you want to say your piece? or not? I can read out your comment if you want.
Council is stupid.
Is that it? We were hoping for something a bit more than that, Will. He's just joined us to talk about it. You say that the Walton Street's no longer fit for purpose. Elaborate on that.
Well, yeah, it's too small.
Okay. I was really expecting more vitriol, Will. You got to amp it up a bit.
There was
the
overcrowding issue last year, wasn't there? There was a mass. I think they had 100,000 people on the first day of it opening, and there was safety concerns for everybody involved. Yeah. So obviously, if it's got to a point where the demand for fair has increased, then that's actually more supporting it being moved so that it can actually accommodate more people in a safer way that's easier to police and easier to get to. Because if you think about traffic flow around Hull Fair time, it's an absolute nightmare.
Oh, it's awful.
I think when you're a travelling fan coming into the city as well now, you'll see Walton Street, you'll see the surrounding areas, you think, let's be honest, I think all's a shithole. It doesn't really paint a good picture, but say if you built a sports village and something more attractive around the stadium, I think that sort of gives fans more purpose, more things to do. You give sort of the players better facilities and stuff like that. Have sort of a training ground next to the stadium, which would make more sense than have it in Cottingham. I think it only benefits the city even more, whereas having the fair there, it's just, like you say, 1 week a year, it's not fit for purpose. I think it's best off moving it, but that's my
and
take.
You've got to look at the reasoning behind him wanting to do it as well. So he wants, I think it's just only comment then about the stadium, the 12,000 seat stadium thing. So he wants he wants to get the club from youth levels all the way up to the first team involved in and around the surrounding stadium.
Yeah,
So
he wants a Man City, essentially.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's
long-term
getting
planning.
them actually involved into the blood of the city again, and having them train in the shadow of the stadium. You know, these young 16-year-old lads in the academy get to look up at the
It's
MKM
good.
and think, well, that's where I want to play one day. You've got a potential stadium for if they wanted, say, for example, if Hull City Ladies ever joined in the future, they could play there. You've got FC if they wanted to relocate to something that would, you know,
right now,
more
Hull
fit their size.
City Ladies have to play like
Across Humber Bridge.
or somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's not even in
they used to
Hull.
play back. Yeah.
I mean, they're not affiliated with the club yet, so that would obviously be something that would have to be resolved in the future. But that's just an example for, like, realistically, like, you could have the youth squad play in that stadium. That's what he's aiming at. So he wants them to be in the shadow of the MKM stadium. So from, you know, the very youngest levels up to the first team, they are living, breathing Hull City. They're in that area. They're in that. And let's be honest, if you do that walkway from Clarendon Street up to the stadium, and just all the overgrown grass, and there's just absolutely nothing
Such a
there.
waste.
Why not allow
Absolutely.
the club to do something with that? Why is that allowed to just remain an
Yeah.
eyesore for the sake of a whole fair that happens 7 days a year? I mean, the other half of West Park looks fairly nice, okay, but the other half of it, you know, from the east, southeast,
It's
whatever,
awful. Yeah. It's just so derelict.
yeah. I mean,
It's massive. You
So
could put anything there.
in the grand scheme of things, it improves the area, it makes it look better. It improves the quality, the experience of the younger players coming up into the fair side. And, I mean, it sounds like
the amount of money you'd make as well, like, say, if, like, fans come in and sort of you build a hotel there, you've got a hotel right next to the ground, not literally a 10-15 minute walk from town. I know there's already hotels in town, but I think people, honestly, you know, there's always extra room, I think, for people to stay there. It's like, only benefits, like, the city, like, if you know, put this plan into
You're
action.
just creating facilities that help improve in more ways, rather than a fair that just does sod all for the really.
Well, the thing is about going to
Yeah.
that comment. The thing is about all fair is the majority of the money goes to the people running the fair anyway. You're paying
Yeah,
them.
it's not really a whole thing, is
Right,
it? It's
going
just
into the
hosted
city.
here.
Someone could come from Leeds. I know they'll pay the council, I assume, to be
Well,
there.
to get
But-
money from them being there, yeah.
Yeah, but then you think, for example, the vast majority of people who go to all fair will be travelling from all over the country, all over Yorkshire,
Yeah.
whatever. They could literally come for the day, pay £3-5 parking for the full day, pay all the stall runners or the ride runners, and then go home, and they've actually not put a single penny into the city of Hull.
Yeah.
Barring the parking, which I don't know where that would go. Depends where you park, I assume.
They've literally
But-
not. Yeah,
I never thought
ridiculous.
we'd talk about parking on this podcast, but that's what it's come to. Here's a stupid question I've just come up with, and I think the answer is fairly obvious to be fair because of the long-term impact. But if you were Agen and you had those £25 million, of course it wouldn't really work now, but that's what we sold Bowen for. So would you rather have this or Jared Bowen for another season?
This.
But the youth academy creates more Jared Bowens.
Exactly. Very good point, Ant.
You were right. It was a silly question.
Well, I did say, I was right to say that then, wasn't I?
More
to be fair?
Keane Lewis Potters, more Jacob Greaveses, more Brandon Flemings. This is the only good thing the Alarms left us was the better youth academy, and it would be silly not to take advantage of that and have like he wants all involved with the first team in the stadium and training in the shadow.
The main sticking point is the fact that the Allams tried to do this like over 10 years ago now and didn't get anywhere with it.
Difference is they want to do it for free, essentially.
Yeah, they wanted the council to pay.
Yeah, they wanted the council to pay for it and give them the stadium, whereas Agen doesn't want to do that. He wants to buy the stadium and develop the land.
Yeah.
Well, it's certainly an interesting thing, and I'm sure it's not the last time we're going to be discussing this, but I think
It will
it's
happen. The problem is, I don't think it'll happen.
Too stubborn, the
Because-
council.
Yes.
Too stubborn.
And not even
Way
that,
too
if they do it if they put it to a public thing, I can imagine a lot of people in the public will say,
They like to take the credit for everything, don't they?
it's tradition. We can't have that, even though it's been apparently the Hull Fair's been in Hull for like, what is it now, 800 years nearly.
Yeah.
And it's
800?
only been at Walton Street for about 150 of those 800.
Yeah. It's a travelling fair. That's the main point.
It is. It's not even just a Hull Fair.
Yeah.
Like, but it's one of these, and it's going to be a slow burner, I think.
It's going to be a rival, isn't it?
Yeah, from what I've seen Tan say, is it's weird that the council would be opposed to it because it's a council-owned stadium on council-owned ground, and there is plans. The plans that they're talking from, that the Lambs even took from, were made with the stadium. So these have all been there, intended to potentially be used in the future since its creation by the council. So
Not
if
gonna
they
change
never
their mind
intended to
now.
do it, then why did they draw up the plans in the first place?
Just
It's a
move
shame.
the fair to St
I
Andrews
do think that
Quay,
if
develop
Adjun's
that
willing to pay
land.
for it, I can't see them really having anything to say against it. If Adjun's turn around to council and saying, I'm going to spend 25 million quid and do this, how can they say no? Oh yeah, but what about the fair? Well, move it then. Move it over there. Then you get £25 million redevelopment, and it looks better and is better. And the fair is still in Hull, just somewhere better that accommodates more people in an easier way. Very frustrating. But I think Tante's going to lobby, obviously, the local people. I think the intention is for the club to ask the people what they want, and then
I think it's all
the
City
fact
fans
that
against
they
everyone
want it,
else.
the council can't really say out, can they?
You'll get this 60% that I like the whole fair. I go every year. All this bollocks.
That's my point.
You want to
That's
do
how
it
they sound.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really a fan of Hull Fair. I've not gone for years. So if they moved Hull Fair to the middle of the Humber, I wouldn't mind. I thought that would get a better reaction.
It brings thousands of people into the city every year. It doesn't
loud.
matter where it is. It can be anywhere.
It's where it is.
Yeah.
It's not fit for purpose anymore.
It's such an eyesore.
It looks good, but it isn't good.
Yeah. Well, that was a very good, lively debate, and I'm sure we're going to have another one because it's the best time of the podcast. It's Nathaniel's combined lineup of the week.
Robbie Brady.
Robbie Brady of former Hull City fame. So, so the formation is because Preston play with a back three, and I think that our centre-backs have been very good recently, so I wanted to include a Preston centre-back and two of ours. So that's why it's Ingham in goal, Story, McLaughlin and Jones in a back three, Robbie Brady, Ben Whiteman, Seri, Brad Potts, Cyrus Christie. It looks like he's a right winger, but he's a right wing back. Slater behind Oscar Estepinian. Another controversial one. Yes, he would be. But you see, Brady and Christie can bomb on. So
Brady
it could
played
be in
wing
the
back
second
for us
formation.
many years ago.
Well, exactly. So that works quite well. I don't think this one's so bad. I say that every time.
I'd probably switch on.
This is one of your better efforts, I will say, Nathaniel.
Thank you, Will. That is very kind. Yeah. Lee Walker says, too many dinosaurs on the council.
Not wrong.
Go on, Wacker.
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park, exactly. So I don't think this one's so controversial. The most controversial thing was working out what colours I should put on the team. I've gone for amber at the top, white below, even though that implies Preston playing white shorts, but they don't. But they don't have the sort of dark blue on the app, so I couldn't put that in.
Yeah, it's not possible as well to sort of do a black and amber for Hull City player and then white for Preston, is it either?
No, and if I could, that would be too much effort.
I think you're overthinking the
probably get it wrong.
Daniel, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, I agree. So Preston are one of the only suspended, but I've changed my mind. Greaves isn't in there because he won't play potentially, although he will because he played against Norwich. Again, now that I think about it, it probably is quite a bad one. But it's 13th against 14th.
I would argue before going into that, we'll bring Greaves back in and we concede 3 goals.
But he scored.
Ooh, he did score, but he did concede 3. So, you can't sacrifice the solidity at the back.
I don't actually think any of them were his. Well,
but by that logic,
the first one deflected off him. But,
he scored. We'll put him up front then.
Yeah.
He'd probably done better than both forwards that game, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, Greaves 4 goals and 14 since his first goal for Hull against
scorer.
On fire. On fire.
Nice. Imagine how much money you'd have won if you'd put a father on each game.
Since then.
Oh, I've made money from him this season already, so I'm happy.
Well, surely the odds would decrease.
Now.
Yeah, I suppose so, because he's of course not scored for us.
I don't think he's not scored for us, has he?
Yeah, another big game at the MKM with no development so far outside the stadium. Preston are one of the best away teams in the league. I think they're 4th or 5th in the away table, which I was very worried about.
Burnley,
fourth.
Stoke, and
But
Burnley, Stoke, and Sheffield United.
we have a very similar record to them. They've conceded and scored 10 fewer than us, but other than that, we have the same points and the same goal difference. We're at home, so maybe that will just give us an advantage. But on paper, it looks like a very tight game. So, Will, I'll go to you first. What changes should Rosenior make, at least to the system or maybe the lineup, and how do you think the game will go?
Go back to the team that played against QPR.
Mm-hmm.
But
I wouldn't complain about
Connolly,
that.
though, because he's injured still.
So who would come in for Connolly?
Greaves up
That's
front.
Greaves up front. Okay, so I'll disregard that. What about you,
Greaves
Tom?
had a few. I think we've got to go back to the same team against. Obviously, I'm so sad that Connolly's injured because he's coming.
So
to the
who
team
comes in for Connolly?
Who comes in for Connolly?
Big
I
Ben.
would play sort
Not
of a
Greaves.
4-2-3-1. 4-2-3-1.
Who comes in for Greaves? Answer.
Who comes in for who?
For Greaves. Connolly.
I think Tufan. Get Tufan in behind the striker. Go on. Get it back in the team.
No, that
Nathaniel is so desperate for you to say certain Mr. Longman.
That doesn't work because Tufan would come in anyway if it was the same team we did against QPR because he started. So who comes in for Connolly?
Adama Traore.
He's injured. You can have Longman. You can have
Callum Jones.
Pelkas. You can have Tete. You can have Ebue. You can have Woods.
Recall Tyler Smith.
You want?
Play Malcolm, but move to Tufan in place, sort of centrally.
Okay, that's acceptable. What about you, Ant?
Um,
Connolly's injured. Remember?
Connolly is injured. I want to see us play with some natural width. I think we've missed it for a long time.
So
I
play
would
Longman.
Don't say Longman. Don't say
No.
Longman.
I want us to play Ebiowe and Pelkas on the wings. Nathaniel, right?
So who are you dropping? Who are you dropping for those two?
I'd have to drop Slater.
Connolly and
RL.
Okay.
Slater and Tufan.
RL.
I don't know because I think Tufan needs to be on. Yeah, I'd drop Slater and Tufan just to see what Ebiowe can do. Bring Tufan as a game changer. I just think you need Doc back in alongside Seri or Slater alongside Seri.
Yeah. I think
Doherty.
we miss Doherty so much, Norwich.
I think we need to go with two strikers for being at home. So I'd have Big Ben and Oscar up top. Then I'd have Pelkas, Doc, Seri, and Ebiowe as the wingers. And then, do you know what? I'd bring Elder back in. And I'd have then the usual.
I think
team.
the problem with sort of Teddy and sort of Oscar playing, I don't think one of them sort of like comfortable with sort of dropping a bit deep like Connolly was doing. We are really missing Connolly. I think it was very evident against. He's the linking player, really.
Yeah, Norwich. He's just so busy and he's everywhere that he's always an option, isn't he?
I'd love to set us just from the few games he played. I'd love for us to sort of go for him in summer. I think we should be doing everything we can to sort of bring him to the club.
Well, Brian,
especially
I'm
with
very fond of him.
Sort
so
of
happy for him to come.
With the relationship he's sort of got with Rosenior as well. I think he's that sort of golden player that Rosenior.
We'll give him Longman back.
Yeah.
So what's your team, Nathaniel?
Well, my team, I've had a fair bit of time to think about it. So I would go back to the same lineup you had against Stoke and Cardiff and the other team, QPR, because we won those games and drew against Stoke. So, of course, Connolly comes out because he's injured. And I think what I would do is bring Ebiowe in, because I said that would be a good idea. And then I guess you'd have him on the wing, have Slater on the other wing, and then Tufan can play as that very attacking sort of Connolly, Tete, almost a striker sort of thing. Well, you know, Longman won. It helped us win coming off the bench. So I think I'm excited to see what this new guy Malcolm brings. So I think that's reasonable.
Slater out wide?
Well, it sort of worked against those teams. I don't want to make. I wouldn't want to make too many changes because I think we made 4 changes against Norwich and it did affect us. And I think we probably did miss Doherty. And maybe you'd keep Greaves out wide.
The last 2 games, we've not really offered much attacking threat at all. I think barring
Yeah.
the goal at Norwich
Christie-
and Connolly's chance against
obviously Christie
Stoke
got the
were
winner,
probably
didn't he?
the only chances we had in both games. So something attacking wise to me needs to change at the minute, and that's just based on the last 2 games. Obviously, it worked before then, but if teams are wising up against us now and playing a system that nullifies it, you've got to find another way, aren't you? Which is why I changed the wingers.
And I think when you've got this many attacking options as well, as soon as you have one bad game, straight away, because we've got that many options, we're thinking, who can we bring in to replace him? And whereas if we did, like last season, we didn't have the option to sort of drop a Tom Eaves, for someone else. We sort of had to play him, and it's like. But now we've actually got the options. It's sort of a good headache to have, like we've said in the past. Like, but I guess Rossini's hopefully Rossini gets it right on Saturday.
Yeah, so, well, I think there are a lot of issues to have with the lineups, and I think it could be a whole combination of various changes, especially with the attacking side of things needing to improve. So, Will, I'll go to you first. What's your prediction for the whole Preston game?
3-0 Hull City.
Cool.
I'm just going to continue
consistent.
saying 3-0 for the rest of the season.
3-0.
And it's going to be 0-0 last 10 minutes, and then my boy Ryan Longman, look at him there. He's going to
get subbed off, and then someone else will score.
He's waiting to show that image.
Do you know what? I'm going to defend Longman. We've not seen the best side of Longman, because I think he's so much better on the right, and we always play him on the left.
I think
we never play him on the right.
To be honest. He's better at wing back.
Yeah, this is a very nice comment from Enshep. Longman instead of Oscar. Oscar's not scored for a while. Drop him. Why not? Longman scored when he was up front against Rotherham and Blackpool. One of those goals basically went in off his bum, but we'll take it. Ant, what's your prediction?
Preston don't tend to concede many. We don't tend to score that many, so I'm going to go with I think we'll win now. 1-0. 1-0 to us.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm gonna be the bearer of bad news here. 1-1.
Well, it wouldn't be awful. Again, that would be the most average thing that could happen, and we are 13th, Preston 14th. That's pretty much as average as you can get.
Would be a fair result.
Well, I think I'll go 1-0. I agree. It'll be a tight game. We don't score many. Preston are very good defensively, and it will be tight. We've had very similar seasons. We have the exact same record, in points and goal difference. And Preston aren't in great form, but they're a solid team. They'll be difficult to break down. It'll be like the Cardiff game.
Whoever scores first wins.
Yeah.
So,
I think it might just be the one goal too, so I'll go 1-0 as well.
Yeah. After the sort of our recent games, I think if we do concede first, that'll be a big test of the players' sort of character. If we can come back. We've seen it under Rossini that we have the character sort of tear the game around, but after sort of losing against Norwich, we'll see what the players are made of, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, three of us.
Never mind, I think it's going to be 4-0 actually.
4-0. Well, I'd like that very much, especially if Longman did finally get a goal. And of course, the stat that I'm ready to use when Longman scores for Rossini is that he will be the first or the only Hull player to have scored under McCann, Shotter, Dawson and Rossini. But I mean, unless you count own goal when he has already done it, or an offside goal, but those don't really count. So I am still waiting to launch onto Twitter and proclaim that as something that's actually that impressive.
You've got about 7 saved drafts ready for Longman scoring.
Absolutely.
Show me
I don't actually. I generally don't. I forget drafts are a thing. I don't really use them.
He's got to save in a Word document instead.
Especially as well. Yeah, probably. Well, I use Google Docs. Although, of course, other typing app things are available for your use. So another fantastic podcast with lots of fierce debate, as we like. So I hope all of you have enjoyed, and thank you very much for liking and commenting. And one last thing. I think it's absolutely terrific what the club and a lot of the fans have done helping with Turkey. And of course, Acun had a big, I think it was just the other day, had a big broadcast, and apparently $6 billion or something ridiculous like that has been raised for Turkey. absolutely crazy and brilliant amount. And so very well done to him and everyone who's donated. I think the figure was getting closer to 10,000 the last time I looked.
The supporters trust one,
is just under 10,000.
So I think that's wonderful and a nice positive thing that the club has done for the Turkish community, and of course all those flags at Stoke, and I'm sure there'll be a huge amount more with our first home game since the earthquake hit. So that's a positive thing. And then I hope everyone's enjoyed. Thanks again for listening and commenting and joining me, Tom and Will. So we'll be back next week, hopefully with Hull getting back to winning ways against Preston. And until then, have a lovely week.